Princess Alira had read about humans the way children read about storms, with fascination. And with the hope that thunder would never roll close enough to shake their own sky, in the sealed silence of the Imperial War archives, she found a name that should not have existed. Captain Elias Vale. Species, human. Status. Killed in action during the siege of Turn Hollow. 71 years ago, and beside that dead name was a fresh entry. Added 3 hours earlier, clearance granted, audience requested. Present in palace custody, the room seemed to tilt. Because the human war had ended before she was born. Because every child of the Celestine court had been raised on the same warning. Never let a human survive long enough to decide you matter. They were too stubborn to die properly. Too reckless to surrender gracefully. Too dangerous to forgive. Yet the records told a stranger truth. Her grandmother had hidden one. Preserved his name under blood-level encryption. And now that ghost was walking through the palace halls. Toward the daughter of the empire that once burned his fleet. Some legends are dangerous because they are false. This one was dangerous because it was walking. Alira summoned the archive keeper, demanded biometrics. Demanded the joke be explained before it soured into treason. But the machine priest only bowed and projected the scan into the air. Male, human, biologically 106. Physically equivalent to 40. Extensive cellular reconstruction, repeated cryonic suspension cycles, military implants of obsolete Terran and then the final line, identity confirmed, which meant Captain Elias Vale had somehow died, been buried, been recorded, and still arrived, breathing at her door, which meant the war archives were preserving a promise. When the past knocks, it never arrives empty-handed. The audience chamber felt too large for one man, and yet when he entered it felt smaller than a coffin. He was tall, silver at the temples, one eye natural and dark, the other a polished combat lens burning faint blue. His uniform was not imperial and not modern Terran. It was patched together from survival. He stopped at the center of the chamber and looked up at Alira. Not as subjects looked at royalty, not as enemies looked at targets, but as if he were measuring whether she would break under the truth. Then he knelt anyway, not out of fear, but out of respect for someone long dead. "You are not my grandmother's prisoner," Alira said. "So why does the archive call you palace custody?" His answer came rough. "Because your grandmother never captured me, princess. I volunteered to stay." She stepped down from the dais before protocol could stop her. "My grandmother ordered the glassing of human colonies," she said. "You expect me to believe you stayed by choice?" Vale lifted his chin. And in that weathered face, she saw not madness, not submission, but old grief trained into discipline. "She ordered the evacuation first," he said. "Your admirals defied her, mine refused retreat. Millions died because proud men wanted a better ending. Your grandmother spent the rest of her life trying to buy one back. I was her witness. Heroes do not always arrive to save a kingdom. Sometimes they arrive to expose it." She took him deeper into the private wing. To the sealed memorial chamber of Empress Saranath, dead 16 years. Vale placed his scarred palm on the lock plate, and it opened to his genome as if he were family. Inside waited only a recording crystal. She knew this day would come, he said. She said her granddaughter would be brave enough to hear what the Empire could not. The crystal awakened, and Saranath appeared in blue light, stripped of majesty. "If you are seeing this," the echo said, "then Elias has finally broken his word to me. Good. He should have done it sooner." Alira forgot how to breathe. "Child, if the archives have opened, then the outer marches are burning again. And the men calling for war will be telling you the same lie they told me, that humanity can be controlled by fear. It cannot. Humans do not bend where others bend. They anchor, they endure, they come back. If you make them your enemy, you inherit a fire that outlives generations. If you make them your ally, you inherit the same fire facing outward. Empires are built on power. but they survive on who still shows up when power fails. Alira turned to Vale, seeing the impossible shape of his life. The cryo-sleep cycles, the rebuilt body, the decades given away one campaign at a time. You stayed to guard her secret, she whispered. No, he said, and for the first time, his composure cracked. I stayed because after Turin Hollow she crossed a battlefield under artillery fire to drag 6 human Marines into a shuttle. Including me, she looked at what was left of my people and chose mercy, while every flag around us demanded vengeance. And I gave her my word that if the old machine ever woke again, I would stand in front of her bloodline before the knives did, as if summoned by the truth itself. Alarms split the chamber. Red light strobed across the memorial walls. The palace defense grid had been breached. The Outer March separatists had launched an internal coup, not at the throne room, but at the archive vaults. Because history was always the first hostage in a new war, guards shouted in the corridor. Plasma fire flashed, and Vale was already moving. Age vanished from him like a disguise falling away. He drew a Terran sidearm from beneath his cloak and pressed a second weapon into her hand. Can you shoot? He asked. Alira stared at the weapon. Then at the man history had buried and mercy had preserved. Teach me on the way. The smile he gave her was not warm. But it was alive, that, he said, rising toward the gunfire, is the most human answer I have heard in 70 years. They stepped into the burning corridor side by side, princess and ghost, heir and witness. And when the first blast door failed and armed rebels poured through the smoke expecting a sheltered royal, what they found instead was a human legend advancing without hesitation, and beside him, an alien princess who had just learned the most dangerous truth in the galaxy. Humans were never terrifying because they loved war. Humans were terrifying because once they chose someone to protect, not even death could reliably make them stop.